Let's talk about future Gold Cup horses. Horses that we'll see at the Cheltenham Festival. One very notable novice chaser that we will not see at the Cheltenham Festival because the prize money is not good enough. Francais will stay in his native France, will almost certainly crush whatever dares to take him on. I thought the biggest giveaway about this after the fact was Willie Mullins talking on Racing TV about how he looked at the entries for the Cotto Star Novice Chase, because we were thinking about Classical Dream or Grange Clare West and theorizing whether or not one of those would turn up. Willie said as soon as he saw Francais' name in the entries, no, that's it. We're not sending anything over there, including Grange Clare West. He was stunningly impressive, Dennis, and obviously many people have made the point. He wins the Cotto Star Novice Chase in a time over 4 seconds faster than Hewick wins the King George. Obviously, if Shishkin stood up, it would have been a different time, but still, for a novice chaser, that is some performance.
It was phenomenal. It was one of the performances of the year, never mind the Christmas. It was outstanding, jumping from fence to fence. But I take it he's only 5, isn't he? He's a young horse, isn't he? And
Same
I
as
think
long run.
yeah, I think they're absolutely right. They're going for the French Gold Cup. So they're not really going for the money. They're just They are obviously going for the money, but he is trained in France, like, so that is their pinnacle over there. I mean, he. In all fairness, I mean, if you can win the Gold Cup as a novice in France, I mean, in fairness, he's not going to. You'd be fairly throwing him in the deep end, taking on Galopin Des Champs now and all them horses in the English Gold Cup. So
Yeah.
it's Jesus. I'd say they're doing the right thing with him. They're minding him. They can bring him back for the Gold Cup next year. That's going to be the plan by the sounds of it. But outstanding performance, jump from fence to fence. James really dropped his hands, got him into a really good rhythm straight away. Huge stride, takes in a huge amount of ground, and barring one little tiny mistake, got lengths at his fences. And James always felt assured on the horse, always never felt in any danger. And I'd say on soft ground he can go any speed, any tempo. A really fascinating horse. He definitely reminded me of Kato Star, and
Yeah.
I thought, when I seen it, I loved him. And his form, he's got form in France with Irish Pint, Icaroko, Cheltenham Festival winner last year, won the Martin Pipe. He's got form with Irish Pint. He beat Irish Pint. Irish Pint beat him. So all that form is tied in with Grade One stuff anyway. So he is top drawer. He's top drawer, and it's fantastic to see a horse like him come from France, because they need a good horse to be coming over. They need him to be coming over, so that the Irish aren't getting blamed all the time for winning everything in England. So they need a bit of French, and it's great to see them with a high class chaser like him. And it's nice to
Well,
see
what
Noel George as well. He's going to make Noel George, isn't he? Uh, he's going to make him now, isn't he, as a trainer? So hopefully he stays sound. A fabulous racehorse, top class.
Yeah, one of the things I find fascinating about this is France has been a feeder system for British and Irish racing for years now. All of the leading British and Irish owners want ex-French horses, and we take the best of their young horses, we bring them here, and we make them champions. That's what Willie Gordon, Paul Nicholls, Nicky Henderson do. This fella is British owned, kept in France. You can watch French racing on Sky Sports Racing. You can see every single race live on Sky Sports Racing. You can travel to France very cheaply these days. You can fly over and fly back on the same day. You can get the Eurostar. How many more owners, Dennis, are going to start thinking, why are we racing for pathetic prize money in Britain, have a horse trained in France, scoop up all that major prize money in France, then if you want to, still compete in the big prestigious British races, but go back to France?
Yeah, I think. Look, I've been a big, I've been saying it for a long time. There's plenty of other people now with bigger reputations than me that are saying it plenty at the moment, including at the weekend on ITV. But it's such a sickener to see uh, where English racing is at the moment, and I'm sure George and everyone will agree. Like, it's not the quality it should be at. and the good horses aren't getting to run enough. The Then there's not enough good trainers with enough good horses, and it's the same old, same old. It's not changing, and uh, I think I remember riding for Ray Anderson Green when I was in the north of England, and he had a lot of horses in training in France at the time. He's the owner of Merrigo, won 3 Scottish Nationals. He owned plenty of nice horses in the UK, but he had a lot of runners in France. He had a lot of horses based in France, and Calvin Hughes, I'm sure, it's not the first time they've had horses based in France. I'm sure Rich Ritchie has horses in France. JP McManus has horses in France. Simon Menier has horses in France. So they all have horses in France, but yet they all want to compete in the UK. But they used to bring them to the UK immediately. But now they're leaving them in France, building up enough in the bank, giving them a good start in France, getting them jumping, getting them going, and then they're probably just leaving them there because the prize money is so good for the likes of the Gold Cups, the Grand National in Altai, the Champion Hurdle in Altai. Serious money now, mega bucks, and so like it's very hard for anyone to if they're French bred and they're trained by top French trainers. It's very hard to take them out of France, isn't it? When the prize money is so good, and but Cheltenham is the pinnacle in England. It really is. It absolutely is. And come March, it's grand given out, but come March, everyone will want to be there. And but I have to say, this Cheltenham weekend just gone, like it was pretty disappointing to see so many small fields. And they are trying their best to maybe put on a big show, but who's going to run their good horses this time of year? Like, they've all run at Christmas.
Yeah.
New Year's Day, who's going to run on bad ground at Cheltenham? Everyone knows that the meetings at Cheltenham from January onwards, well, the ground is so bad and deep. And I know they were saying the other day it wasn't too bad, but the next meeting now at Cheltenham, is going to be the Cotswold Chase. Isn't that the next meeting at Cheltenham? Is
Yeah.
that the end of the
Trials
month?
Day.
That's a grueler. No one is going to run good horses there. I mean, what's the point in having it there? But then I suppose the Dublin Race Festival is in February, and but it's a different track. It's a different
Yeah.
track, stiff track, but not with the same sort of.
But it's funny though,
go on.
Dennis, because I got a WhatsApp yesterday from a presenter, colleague of mine, saying, God, they got some crowd for Cheltenham. Like 33,000 people turning up. Premierization must work. And then a few minutes later, he sent me a message saying, scratch that. There were 38,000 people at it last year. It just turns out it's a big day. People want to go. And I'm not critiquing
Big family day.
premierization already. Yeah, look, we'll give it time. In fact, I've been very critical of the British Horse Racing Authority throughout most of 2023, and we're into a new year. I was going to save this until we're doing a special edition of the Final Furlong podcast on Friday. We're going to do an industry special talking about some of the big issues in racing, what can be done to fix them, what needs to be done. Matt Chapman's already done a brilliant video where he's outlaid his concerns, but maybe it's the beginning of a new year. It's the first episode of the new year. Maybe George is going to be shocked at this. Maybe we should just do a list of things that the British Horse Racing Authority have either implemented or have suggested implementing to improve the sport that I think are good, and praise them as opposed to just criticizing them. So came up with a list.
Oh.
Yeah, I got nothing. This is a blank piece of paper. The sky is falling in British racing. It's a night. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how it gets fixed. I don't have the solutions. But man, surely one of the things you could do is implement, instead of restrictions, like Willie Mullins, Gordon Elliott, no sign of them at all New Year's Day at Cheltenham. Not a single entry between them. And yet, we got to impose a limit on the number of runners one trainer can have in the Class 1 and Class 2 handicaps, because that's the real problem in British racing, despite the fact that it's already been worked out that since 2018, that would only have affected 4.17% of the races. That's the number in the top of my head. This is being reductionist, being protectionist. That's not the way to solve it. What about incentives to encourage owners to have horses in training in Britain? There's wonderful trainers there, incredibly talented trainers there. But what's the incentive to have a horse in training in the UK? Well, maybe if you take all the existing novice hurdles and novice chases and say, win a race of this particular category with a novice hurdler or a novice chaser, and if that horse goes on to win at Cheltenham, you get a £50,000 bonus. But if that horse goes on to win at the Aintree Grand National meeting, or the Scottish Grand National meeting, or Sandown's end of season meeting, it's £100,000 bonus. So you're building up those other festivals while also actively giving an incentive for owners to have a horse in training in Britain. And if the Irish want to come over and compete, great, you can compete, but you're not eligible for the bonus. It's just for British trained horses. That would be the BHA having to put their money into the satchel and commit to something, as opposed to just doing reductionist, protectionist policies that don't cost them anything.
Yeah, rather than continue to advertise a package that isn't working to people who don't want to go racing.
Yeah.
It's just the thing, like, oh, well, if we get Peppa Pig in on Saturday, that'll get more people in the gate. Yeah, but it doesn't improve the racing. Might get more people in the gate, but like, the fundamental problem is the programme.
Have you spoken to anybody who was at Cheltenham have you spoken to anybody who was at Cheltenham on New Year's Day, George? And did they tell you anything about how much better it was under this new premierization?
No, I didn't. I know Josh was there, but I didn't actually speak to him about anything like that. But I tell you how close that day was to an absolute disaster. I was watching the race Cloudy Glen ran in, and it took me a second. Like I can't explain it, but like there was something. The race was wrong, and I went, "Wait, that's Richmond Lake. No, it's not. No, it's Cloudy Glen." And I went, do you know why I couldn't tell the races apart? There were two races with like 5-6 runners with 3 of the same sets of silks. If the McNeil family, the Hemmings family, and Di Walters hadn't supported that meeting, how much trouble it would have been in. Like they had 7, 8 runners between them, and there were 5 runners in every race. That's how close we're relying so heavily on these people to keep investing their money in racing rather than trying to bring new owners in. Like it's fantastic to have like supporters of the sport like those people. But my God, like these things happen. Unfortunately, in Mr. Hemmings's case, like people pass away, and sometimes the family don't carry on having horses. And like, what are we going to do then? Like, we need to bring new owners.
David Johnson
incentives to do it. Yeah, David Johnson, exactly.
Graham Wiley.
Terrible loss to the sport. Graham Wiley's alive and well, and he's out of the sport.
You see very few Stuart horses now as well. There are a couple of them, but very few.
Yeah, certainly not the strength that the late great Andy Stewart would have had back in the day. It's all very worrying, and it doesn't exactly inspire a huge amount of confidence. Look, we'll talk more about it on Friday's industry special edition of the Final Furlong podcast. But yeah, it's worrying times to say the least. Francais, he's a machine. Hermes.